the Grouchy Nerd.
Alright, quiet down, knuckleheads. It's time to take another look at a new hero for Fantasy Flight Games Marvel Champions. This time we're looking at Spider-Ham. Peter was born an anthropomorphic spider over on Earth 8311 in the basement of fringe scientist May Porker, who irradiated herself, somehow unleashing the Renfield within. Luckily, I guess she passed out before she could do too much damage to the spider, who then grew into a pig. But he discovered that he retained his spider abilities and decided to become a hero, dubbing himself Spider-Ham and adopting Porker as his alter ego surname. Since then, he's been a member of the Scavengers, the 8311's all-animal Avengers team, and jumped realities to help Peter and Miles and the gang in many a Spider Totem adventure. And he actually dates back to the 80s, which I was surprised to find. And here's another fun fact about Spider-Ham. Daredevil is still not a playable character in this game. Yeah. Moon Knight? Winter Soldier. Oh, whatever. Let's look at the stupid pig. On his hero side, Spider-Ham does 2 thwart, 1 attack, and 1 defense. Hit points are 12, and hand size is 5. He's got the cartoon and web warrior traits. Each toon counter on Spider-Ham may be spent as if it were a wild resource with no limit. And he has Spider Nonsense. As a response, after Spider-Ham takes any amount of damage, place 1 toon counter on him. Over on his alter ego side, Peter Porker comes onto the scene in a big way, being our very second hero with a recovery of 5. Ms. Marvel, who has a healing factor not quite as strong as Wolverine's, is the only other. Man, I guess being made of cartoon is pretty cool. Except for, you have to watch out for falling pianos, I guess. And it seems like quicksand is probably much more of a prevalent issue. Cartoon power, as a response after you make a basic recovery, gain a toon counter. So, wow, tied for best recovery in the game, and when you use that recovery, you get a toon counter that at least is a wild resource, but we're going to see some ways where those toon counters can be much, much more than a wild resource. Digging into his kit, up first is signature ally Captain Americat in the style of Steve Mouser, which isn't even close to Rogers. What are they going for there? 3 cost, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 hit points. As a response, after he enters play, give someone a high 5, place 1 toon counter on your identity, and shuffle 1 Spider-Ham card from your discard pile into your deck. Important to note that there is not an arrow after that high 5, so you'll defer to the rule where you just do as much of the card as you can, which if you're playing solo, might mean skipping the high 5, unless of course you have mastered, as I have, the art of the Self 5. That's a great ally. 3 cost is perfect, especially since you're going to be getting a toon counter back, which again can be a wild resource. So in a way, he costs 2. Yeah, that's good. That's solid. Then we have 2 copies of an event with the very best cost, 0. It has cartoon and thwart traits, and as a hero action, remove 1 threat from a scheme for each toon counter on Spider-Ham. So even if you're spending those toon counters fairly aggressively, this is still really good. It costs 0, so you can save it until the very last thing that you do on a turn where maybe you've recovered, maybe you've taken a bit of damage, and maybe you've found another way to get 1 or 2, or maybe even 3 or 4 of those toon counters on you. Lay this down for 0, and just take some threat off. Yeah. Next up is 1 copy of Hogwashed, a 1-cost event with the cartoon trait. As a hero action, remove 1 toon counter from Spider-Ham and loudly read the flavor text at the bottom there to do either 5 damage to a minion or 5 threat off of a side scheme. The real cost is your dignity. 1 resource and 1 counter, which is strictly speaking better than a resource to do either 5 damage or 5 threat, is really good. The fact that it's limited to either a minion or a side scheme is less good, but that it's either one of those still makes it, fine. It's pretty good. Next is another 1 copy, 1 resource plus 1 toon counter event. I don't think so. As an interrupt, when you reveal an encounter card, play this, remove a counter, say, I don't think so, in your best John Mulaney voice, and cancel the effects of that card and discard it. The cancel an encounter card always get a big thumbs up for me. It probably won't be in your hand when you draw Shadow of the Past or Advance, but it might be. It might be. And I think that's what's most important. but it won't be. Then we have 2 copies of Petulant Pig, a 0-cost event with the cartoon trait. As a hero action, stick your tongue out at the villain attacks you, draw 3 cards. I mean, drawing 3 cards on a 0-cost event is obviously wonderful. And Spider-Ham gets a tune counter when he takes damage, so you're gonna probably be getting one of those. So now you have 3 brand new cards and a tune counter. That's great. And he's got a big health pool and a great recovery, so taking a hit isn't going to be that debilitating. He can just flip down to Peter Porker, recover for, I'm sure, more than you just got hit for, and get another tune counter. Next up, 3 copies of Swinging Web Pig, a 3-cost attack event with the cartoon trait. Deal 6 damage to an enemy, confuse that enemy. That's kind of fantastic. I mean, 3 for 6 damage isn't the best turnover, but that confuse sure is, and that can allow you to very safely dip down to Alter Ego and recover for that huge 5 recovery and get another tune counter. Next is 1 copy of the Daily Beagle, a 2-cost support with the cartoon and location traits. As an Alter Ego action, exhaust the Daily Beagle to place 1 tune counter on Peter Porker. Well, I've been waiting this whole wave to see what we were going to do with his. Every character in this wave has had a parental type support except for the pig. I wanted to know how we were going to do the pig that tried to eat the spider as a support, and then they were just like, nah man, it's a building, here's a building. Moving right along to cartoon physics, we get 2 copies of this 1-cost upgrade with the cartoon and superhero traits. As an interrupt, when your identity would take any amount of damage, discard this card, wiggle your body, and prevent all but 1 of that damage. Again, just do as much as you can or are willing to do in terms of body wiggle. I think the or willing is implied in that rule. Do as much as you can or are willing to do in terms of body wiggle. So recover, get a tune counter. Use the Daily Beagle, get a tune counter. Flip up to hero side, stick your tongue out at the villain, get attacked. Use this to make that attack only do 1 damage, get a tune counter. Now ham it up is 0 cost for 3 thwart, and you have a whole brand new handful of cards. I'm genuinely a little annoyed at how good this stupid pig is, and it's about to get even better. Huge Wooden Hammer is a 2-cost upgrade with the cartoon and weapon traits. It gives Spider-Ham +1 to his attack, bringing it up to 2. As a hero interrupt, when Spider-Ham makes a basic attack, exhaust Huge Wooden Hammer and remove 1 tune counter from Spider-Ham to give that attack +2 with Overkill. It's like his own personal reloadable hand cannon. Last is Organic Webbing, another 2-cost upgrade with cartoon and superhero traits. Spider-Ham gets +1 to his thwart, bringing that to a very respectable 3. As a hero action, exhaust Organic Webbing and remove 1 tune counter to ready Spider-Ham and gain aerial for the rest of the phase. You didn't need to go this hard on the pig. Why did they go this hard on the pig? The bad stuff! Peter Porker's obligation is, I really want a hot dog, which is kinda messed up. Exhaust Peter Porker and remove a tune counter to get rid of it, otherwise you have to take a stun just to discard it. And those tune counters suck to lose, so that is a bummer, but they're also pretty quick to generate, so that's not that bad. However, if you don't have one, or if you're already exhausted, that stun just to discard this, well, that sucks. Nefarious Trap is Spider-Ham's signature side scheme. It rolls in with just 3 threat on it, but it has the hazard icon, and when it's defeated, the Green Gobbler, Spider-Ham's signature nemesis, attacks the player who defeated it. Or if the Green Gobbler is not in play, you have to find him and put him into play, engaged with the player who defeated it. So if you've drawn Shadow of the Past, they're both, of course, going to be out at the same time. So you can either attack the Green Gobbler and defeat him, and then defeat the side scheme, but then he's going to come back out. Or you can defeat the side scheme, but then he's going to hit you before you can defeat him. So either way, you're probably getting hit. The Green Gobbler himself comes in with 1 scheme to attack for hit points and the cartoon and criminal traits. As a forced response after the Green Gobbler engages you, discard all your counters. All of them! Not just your tune counters. If you have energy barrier out or a hand cannon, anything like that, you got to discard all your counters. Then an attachment, the Gobbler Glider. It surges, attaches to the Green Gobbler if able, or any other minion if not. This attached minion gets +1 to its attack and scheme stats, and gains the aerial trait, which I don't think matters? Is there anything with Ariel with minions? Last is 2 copies of a Treachery. Feast on this. When revealed, take 2 damage and you're confused, or it surges if you're already confused. Obviously, the confuse is worse than the 2 damage. You have 12 hit points and a recovery of 5. You're gonna be fine. But the confuse, that can suck. Also, a turkey, talking about a feast and making pumpkin pie references. Is he aware of American Thanksgiving traditions? What kind of weird cartoon dystopia are we dealing with here? Why would he have to know about that? Moving on to his aspect card, Spider-Ham came with a Justice deck. And first up is Lady Spider, played by May Riley, who's like a steampunk Aunt May who was the Spider Totem of Earth 803. She costs 4 with 4 HP, has the Web Warrior trait, and she does 2 thwart and 2 attack, but at 2 consequential damage each. But as a response, after she thwarts and removes threat off of a scheme, you can remove the same number of threat off of another scheme as long as you control another Web Warrior. Okay, so a chance to get 8 threat if you can use her 2 times with 2 schemes that both have at least 4 threat on it. So that's already a pretty narrow range there of how often that's going to come up. But if it were to come up, that would be excellent. Because of the Web Warrior trait, of course, team building exercise makes her a little bit cheaper to come out, and the Web of Life and Destiny allows you to draw a card when she leaves play, which she would do on that second time you use her threat at 2 consequential damage. Thwart, not threat. Then we have 3-cost Spider-Man in the style of Pavatir Prabhakar, the Spider Totem from Earth 50101. He has 3 hit points and the Web Warrior trait. He does 1 thwart, 1 attack, and as a response, after he enters play, remove 1 threat from a scheme for each Web Warrior card you control, including himself. So just by coming into play, assuming that you are also playing a Web Warrior card, he'll be taking 2 threat off. But if you have a full complement of your 3 allies, plus Web of Life and Destiny, and you're a Web Warrior yourself, that's going to be 5. Plus, then he's an ally after that. Next up is 3 copies of Even the Odds, a 2-cost thwart event with an energy resource requirement. As a hero action, remove 1 damage per identity from each side scheme. Deal 1 damage to the villain for each side scheme defeated this way. I don't feel like lots of side schemes with very little threat on them is a board state I have very often playing solo. I would imagine in many of the many multiplayer games, the kind that take like 3 hours. I would imagine this would be good, but I think for solo, it's pretty bad. I think it's pretty bad. A 0-cost upgrade, Overwatch, is next, of which we get 3 copies. Attached to a scheme, as a hero interrupt when any amount of threat is removed from the attached scheme by a thwart, discard this card to remove the same amount of threat from another scheme. So yeah, you put this on a side scheme, and when you clear that, you're also taking threat off the main scheme, or you put it on the main scheme and get rid of a side scheme for free. That's great. Next up is Peter Parker's clone, Kane, as Scarlet Spider. He's a 4-cost basic ally who does 1 thwart and 2 attack. He has 4 hit points in the Web Warrior trait, and you must be in control of a Web Warrior card to get him out. As an interrupt, when you would reveal an encounter card, name a card type, then look at the card. If the card type matches the card you called, deal 1 damage to Scarlet Spider and draw a card. Okay. You don't cancel the when revealed on the card. You don't discard the card instead of putting it into play. You just, if you're right, he takes a damage and you draw a card. Okay. Then we have a new character played by Penny Parker. SPDR. She's a 2-cost basic ally with the Web Warrior trait, and again, you must control another Web Warrior traded card to get her out. She does 2 thwart with 2 consequential damage, or 1 attack with 1 consequential damage, and she has 2 hit points. But when she's defeated, if she went out because of excess consequential damage, she goes back to your hand. So if you can work it out that she thwarts with 1 hit point left, you immediately get her back to hand and can either play her again or use her as a resource. That's fantastic. I love that card, even if I don't know how to say it, which is going to be a real problem pretty soon. Last 3 copies of Warrior of the Great Web, a 1-cost basic upgrade with the title trait. Attached to a character with spider in its title, max 1 per character. Attached character gains the Web Warrior trait, and as a response, when a Web Warrior ally leaves play, attached character gets +1 attack until the end of the phase. So yeah, it's like the fix for Peter Parker and Jessica Drew, being Spider-Man and Spider-Woman respectively, but not having the Web Warrior trait. This gives it to them. The +1 attack for the allies going out of play is crazy in Spider-Woman, who can already boost all of her stats pretty high. I feel like I would prefer this card to be permanent, but then maybe it wouldn't do all the other stuff. I don't like that you have to find it, and that you have to pay for it, and that it can leave play if you get a card that makes you discard an upgrade. I don't know. It's fine. Spider-Ham is strong. Like, really, really annoyingly strong. Every single one of his cards has the cartoon trait. Between that and Web Warrior, why wouldn't you be running Team Building Exercise? Why wouldn't you be running potentially all 3 copies? This deck was reprinted with it for a reason. He obviously came with Justice, and that's a great fit for him, but Aggression is also a lot of fun because he has that huge wooden hammer, which is essentially like a hand cannon in a lot of ways, and unlocks a lot of those aggression cards, the events that deal with overkill and doing excess damage. And why not even run both? You can have the huge wooden hammer and the hand cannon. You got 2 hands? Or, well, he's a spider. First, he was a spider who turned into a pig. Maybe he still has them and they're really tiny. But he's also got a huge recovery and a great hit point pool. Protection is a natural fit as well. He's really strong. There's not a bad build with this guy. Alright, well, we made it through the pig. Get off my lawn. The Grouchy Nerd.